Edmund Kemper was institutionalized at the age of 15 when he gunned down his grandparents, but was released when he turned 21. He earned the nickname of the CoEd Killer by killing and dismembering 6 college girls. In April of 1973, he killed his mother and her best friend while they slept. Though he was an imposing figure at 6'9" and over 250 pounds, he was polite, intelligent, courteous, and considered a model prisoner. He is prominently featured in the Netflix series Mindhunter and is serving 8 life sentences. Ted Bundy was a charming and handsome man on the outside, but a vicious killer on the inside. Though the exact number of victims may be higher, 36 women died by his hands, with some being as young as 12 across 6 states. Bundy's IQ was tested at 136. He earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Washington. He put his intelligence to use by tricking his victims in order to lure them in closer, including faking injuries and impersonating a police officer. He was also able to escape twice from police custody. Many psychology professionals describe him as absolutely cruel and evil. In fact, even one of his lawyers said that he was the very definition of heartless evil. But during his trial, he represented himself in court. He was intelligent and charismatic, but was found guilty and given the death penalty. Harold Shipman was a British doctor and one of the most prolific serial killers in history. On January 31st, 2000, a jury found Shipman guilty of 15 murders. He was sentenced to life in prison, and the judge recommended that he never be released. After his trial, a separate commission investigated 500 patients that died in Shipman's care, and they were confident that he had a hand in 218 of his patients' deaths. On January 13th, 2004, the day before his 58th birthday, Shipman was discovered hanging in his prison cell, having used bed sheets tied to the window bars of his cell. Dahmer may be the most notorious serial killer in American history. When he was 18 years old, Dahmer committed his first murder and buried his male victim in the backyard. 9 years later, he would begin killing again. By 1991, Dahmer had the idea that he could turn young men into his personal sex slave zombies. Some of his victims were tortured by him drilling holes into their heads and pouring boiling water onto their brains or injecting them with hydrochloric acid. When Dahmer was finally caught, police discovered severed heads in his apartment and photographs of dead bodies and limbs. A human heart was found in the freezer for a later meal. He was killed in prison in 1994. Andrewcunan lived in San Francisco's Castro district and socialized with older gay men. He spoke 7 different languages by the time he turned 21, but he was also drawn to violent pornography, sometimes taking a part in the films. He also was involved with drugs and he would sometimes prostitute himself. In 1997, he fell into a deep depression. It was believed at this time he had felt he had contracted AIDS. He may have blamed one of his former lovers, Jeff Trail, who became his first victim. He then went on to kill 3 more men before surfacing in Miami, Florida. In Miami, he murders his final victim, fashion designer Gianni Versace. Police traced Cunanan back to a houseboat, and Cunanan shot and killed himself before the authorities could arrest him. He seemed like a bright young man until his darker side showed through. His IQ was 147, and an autopsy later revealed that he did not have AIDS. Carol Cole was born in Sioux City, Iowa on May 9, 1938, to an abusive, adulterous mother. Due to his hatred of his mother, Cole strangled 1 boy and 14 women, and may have killed as many as 35. When he was 14, Cole received an IQ test and scored 152, which is genius level. However, his grade average was only D+, and he only finished the 10th grade, but this may be due to mental illness, physical and mental abuse, and drug abuse. Regardless, he was manipulative and played the system to get what he wanted. He was executed in 1985 by lethal injection. Charlene Gallego, also known as the Love Slave Killer, is a convicted American serial killer who terrorized Sacramento, California between 1978 and 1980. With her lover, Charlene Gallego murdered 10 people. They kidnapped their victims and kept them as sex slaves until they got bored, and then simply killed them. After being caught, she blamed her lover. She agreed to testify against him in return for a 17-year prison sentence. This just shows how good she was at manipulating others. Gallego was gifted and talented, with a 160 IQ and a prodigious talent for the violin. was not until she started high school that predilections for alcohol, drugs, and sex revealed themselves in her character. She was released from prison in 1997 and is now 66 years old. Rodney Alcala was convicted for 5 murders, but before the world knew about him as a serial killer, he appeared on the dating game in 1978. What's more, he won the date. Other contestants found Alcala creepy. Maybe it was because in 1968, prior to the dating game, he was convicted for the sexual assault of an 8-year-old girl. How could the show have missed this? A few months after Alcala was on the dating game, he began his life as a serial killer. While he was tried and convicted for murdering only 5, the Huntington Beach Police Department released 120 photographs of women that had been found in Alcala's belongings. The police asked for the women in these photographs to please come forward. About 20 women have come forward so far, but many fear that Alcala may have murdered more women than was originally believed. There is nothing remarkable about Alcala's childhood. He served in the U.S. Army as a clerk from 1960 to 1964, but he had a breakdown and received a medical discharge after being diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. Alcala was quick to boast that he was a genius. He died in 2021 at the age of 77. Anyone born before the 1990s probably has some memory of the Unabomber. Between the years of 1975 and 1995, Ted Kaczynski made and shipped dozens of homemade bombs to people. In total, his bombs killed 3 and injured 23 people. Alton Chase, in an article he wrote for The Atlantic, believes that the Unabomber was created at Harvard. Kaczynski was part of a brutal psychological experiment on students during his time attending Harvard. The experiments, led by psychologist Henry A. Murray, tested how people reacted while under tremendous amounts of stress. It was during this time that Kaczynski began to break down his belief system into good and bad. Technology became evil. Escaping into the wilderness and living the lifestyle of a hermit was good. From 1975 to 1995, Kaczynski lashed out at universities and airliners, mailing bombs to professors, an airline president, and a computer store owner. Kaczynski had a brilliant mind. He graduated from the University of Michigan in 1967 with a PhD in mathematics and was a mathematics instructor at Berkeley. His IQ was tested at 167 when he was in the 5th grade. On May 24, 2012, Kaczynski submitted his current information to the Harvard University Alumni Association. He listed his 8 life sentences as awards and his current occupation as prisoner. Albert Salvo, born in 1931, grew up in Massachusetts. He was the son of an alcoholic father and wife beater. With the odds for a normal life already set against him, he spent his youth committing petty crimes and violence. In and out of prison, he eventually moved to being a peeping Tom, breaking and entering, and then on to sexual assault. Salvo was finally caught after breaking into a woman's apartment and molesting the victim. Her description of Salvo led to his arrest. After his arrest, Salvo admitted to committing robbery on hundreds of apartments and carrying out multiple sexual assaults. What really shocked everyone is that he also admitted to being the Boston Strangler. He went on to talk about the 13 grisly murders he committed. On November 25, 1973, he was found stabbed to death in the prison infirmary. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It really helps the channel out, and we'd greatly appreciate it.